Hey everyone, so I'm going to do my random card sketch challenge again. I'm going to be using Harvest Festival from Honeybee Stamps. And I got myself these really fantastic dies off Etsy. I absolutely love them to death. They come in this box and I picked 7 different colors, and I was a bit of a card sketch nerd. And I picked colors that align with the companies or creators that create sketches. For example, here we have Mojo Monday, which is bright green. Operation White Home is red and blue, so I've got the blue. MFT are like a pinky purple. That was the closest color that I could get. Jess Crafts, I got orange. Call Me Crafty Owl is like a tealy color. These dies are so cool. They're such high quality, and I thought I can roll both at once if I have the different colors. So I will pop these back in. I'm going to get into this really quickly. I do think I'm probably going to need another lot of sketches depending on what numbers I roll, but let's see. No, that works fine. That's 10 sketches. So I've got 4 Operation Right Home and 6 Mojo Monday. Let's go Mojo Monday first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hopefully I've got some different ones in there. And then Operation Right Home, I'll pick 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's see what we have. Mojo Monday sketch 548, 557, 550, 528, 535, 518, and then Operation Right Home 180, 162, 120, and 178. So with 10 sketches, and there is 24 sheets of double-sided paper in this paper pad, I will have to be very careful about whether or not I use multiples for this and how I spread the paper to make sure I get loads of cards. So sorting through all these beautiful papers, I was able to match a few of them up quite easily. So the one with the starry sky went with one with the stars. The one where I really loved the leaves, I thought I'll use one of the designs or card sketches that has a big section of the same paper. I then just ran through and just partnered a couple of them up. I tried to use my favorite papers as well as where I could both sides, so to really showcase all of the paper. I did find with this that there was an ability to do some black and white cards, some red and brown cards, some really bright summer cards. So they all look a little bit different. I find it quite unusual with this paper pad that I was able to create such a different look, all coming from something that coordinated so well together. I didn't end up with everything looking same, which was really, really great. The first card sketch is Mojo Monday 548, and this one has several layers on it, but I made a choice to not matte every single layer. I've also used one of my grey backing panels, which I often use in card sketches, and the reason why I use it is to make sure there's not too much white space, but to conserve the pattern paper and make it stretch further on the cards. I know a lot of card makers do lots and lots of layers of the pattern paper, but I like to spread it out a little and make the most use of what I have. So here you can see that first pattern paper is straight onto the grey panel. I'm now doing the black strip that's going to go horizontally partway up the card. Now I'm being particularly careful to keep it straight, but I'm not making sure that each one of these is the exact same distance from the bottom of the card. I'm really just eyeballing it and doing my best to make sure that it's, roughly where it needs to be. The next thing is adding the foliage. I had these on my desk from a previous card project, and these are perfect because I can line them up on the card and then overlap them with those rectangles of the check paper that you can see on my desk ready to go. So I've lined everything up. I've got a good idea of where I need to put these on the panels. But again, I'm not trying to be too perfect with it. In fact, I've deliberately got some of the foliage falling off the card. And then at the end, I'll just trim that down so that it does finish at the edge of the card base. I'm adding some scrap cardstock that's double layered just behind these squares, just to make sure that everything lays nice and flat. I don't always need to do this, but for some of these card designs, I really had to do it quite a bit, and some of the cards are quite heavy because there's a lot of layers, but you'll see that as the video progresses. So for these three, I've used You're Brilliant and Absolutely Amazing as my sentiment. On to sketch number 2. This is Mojo 518 or Mojo Monday 518. For these, I've actually used a craft backing panel. I did that on a lot of these cards because it was a much better match to the autumn colours than the grey. So on that black and white card, I used the grey, but for most of these, you'll see that I'm using craft. Each of these has been matted in my white cardstock. I use about 200 GSM. It's nice and cheap, and I like to use it to show contrast. It's another reason I do the backing panel, because I wouldn't be able to put white mats if I didn't have something behind it to sit between the white mat of the pattern paper and the white card base itself. I have some shimmer chocolate cardstock at the top of my desk just here. This was, again, something that I found sitting in my list of scraps, and it was absolutely perfect for this paper pad. So there's various times that you will see me pull this out and use it for completing some of the cards. For this sentiment, I'm using my new Lawn Fawn stamp set. I believe it's called Magic Messages. I featured it in my haul video a few days ago. The intent was I was going to use this on circle sketches, but it worked perfectly for this one. I'm also trying to do a lot less birthday cards because I have a bit of a plan on what to do with some encouragement and thank you cards. So you will see that I'm using all sorts of different messages through these, and I'm pretty excited about it because I can drag out some of my stamp sets that have some really unique sentiments and put them to really good use. I love how this card sketch turned out. This is one I'll probably use again. All right, on to sketch number 3. This is Mojo Monday 557. Now for this one, you might have noticed I was just scribbling on the sketch. I don't know if it was a typo on the sketch, but I ended up adjusting it to have a piece of pattern paper in the bottom half, which is shown in the blue on the top left hand of the screen, and then the white piece at the top. I made it so the two pieces of paper met up perfectly, and then I had some paper as a separator across the middle. I will make a note of the adjustment that I made to the sketch so that if you are recreating or using these card sketches, you're aware of the change that I have made. I absolutely love this orange paper. It really does look like someone's done alcohol ink. It's that similar look, and the sunset colors are really, really, really pretty. As I'm working through these card sketches, I would love to know which one is your favorite, and more than which one's your favorite, which ones do you think you would create cards out of? There was one in particular in here, and I'll share at the end which one it was, that I absolutely loved, and I can see myself using it to work through some of my scrap pile and create some cards that may not be the exact same dimensions of the sketch, but use that concept. So keep an eye out for which one's your favorite and let me know in the comments below. And later on, I'll share with you which one I absolutely loved. I used the Simon Says Stamp Beautiful Day stamp set. This is a 6x8 stamp set with lots of stamps on it. And so I have the I Adore You, and then I'm using my orange soda Hero Arts ink to just stamp a little butterfly in the bottom corner. And that matches in really nicely with the pattern paper. I did do a few extras of these because I anticipated that I might need another sentiment for later cards. And if I don't use it, I will use it for another project. But I created 2 of those. The next card sketch is Operation Right Home 178. This one had a big rectangle of paper and then a smaller rectangle and some little circles to the left-hand side. If anyone has watched any of my previous videos, you'll know that I'm absolutely notorious for leaving off the little elements. I don't add a lot of extras to my cards, and even these little circles on the left-hand side of the sketch, I would normally skip over. But I'm very proud of myself. I actually did remember to add those, and you'll see me do that shortly. The other thing that I did do is for the rectangle that's going horizontally across the sketch, I matted it, but I only matted the top, bottom, and the right. So on the left-hand side, it cuts off directly at the edge of that craft backing panel. And to me, it just gives a cleaner look. I don't really want to have an unnecessary mat just sort of hanging off the edge.
and then putting white next to white, if I'd shuffled it across, would have changed the look of the card. So this was the way that it worked out quite well. Now, previously I'd said I created some extra of these I adore you sentiment sections, and I decided to use those instead of a long rectangle. They look great on the card. I'm really happy with the balance. It's not as the sketch was originally intended, but it does mean I get to use a few of the things that I already had in my stash. Now, for these next two, I went a little bit rogue. I decided I would put a thank you stamp at the top, and then I would somehow make the foliage work. I had 3 little spare sprigs of foliage on the left of my desk, and I thought this would be a great chance to use 2 of them, but it just looks a little odd. I mean, I still like them, they're nice cards, but these 2 are definitely not my favorite. I just think that sprig of foliage just does not look right, and maybe I need to add something else. Maybe I could add one of my Kaisercraft butterfly stickers or something. In fact, I think I'm going to do that. It's too late now because the video is complete, but before I use those cards, I definitely need something else on the right hand side. The next sketch is Operation Right Home 180. This sketch had me a little perplexed. I mean, I'm pulling random sketches out and I'm not using the same sketch twice in any of my projects. So I'm going to hit some that I find a little bit more challenging. But I just looked at this and I thought, I've got these 2 little rectangles of pattern paper that are going to be in the top of the sketch. How am I going to make this look like it's kind of balanced? So in the end, I just focused on getting the elements done, and then on my left side of my desk, you can see that there's little piles of bits and pieces. Now these come out of my stash from things that are left over from other projects, or I've die cut a bunch of things that I haven't needed, and I find ones that match the pattern paper. I put them to the side and then I try and incorporate them as I go. And that worked out really well with this one. So I'm using some of the bright orange and teal colors on one of the cards, and then the other one has the browns and the orange, but then I managed to include a little bit of teal in one of the rectangles at the top. After trimming these down and getting rid of these little extra bits at the bottom, I then decided to include a couple of the hummingbirds. So I had those spare from a project, and by putting a really basic white sentiment down the bottom right hand corner and then having that hummingbird kind of float over where the 2 pattern papers, or the 3 pattern papers actually come together, just gave the focal point to the top left hand corner of a card. And I don't know that I've done very many cards that have the focal point being top left, but they worked out really well in the end. I was really happy with how it all came together. So I'm just attaching the completed card panel to the white card base, and all of the cards that I'm using today are standard A2, so they're 5.5 by 4.25 inches. So we are now at the halfway point, and we are moving on to sketch number 6, which is Mojo Monday 550. For this one, I managed to use my Lawn Fawn sentiment set again, and this is being used the way that I had intended when I purchased it, which is to stamp into some circle components on a card sketch. So these worked out really, really well. I was so excited to be able to actually use this and add some new and interesting sentiments to some of my cards. This galaxy paper is absolutely awesome. It is just, the teal color is just so pretty. I did decide to use the grey backing panels with this one because it matches quite well with the black mats and then the teal paper. In the top right hand corner of my desk, you can see that I'm building up a bit of a pile of scrap paper. I'm not going to be using a full paper pad as part of this video. I'm literally just using the 10 random sketches and creating quite a few cards out of each one. And then with that scrap pile, it's not really a scrap pile, with the leftovers from the paper pad, I'll then probably just create another video creating random cards. I've never been particularly good at creating freestyle cards, but I think all the practice with using card sketches, you pick up, little concepts or components of card sketches that work really well, and then you can incorporate it into the cards that you create on your own using whatever leftovers you have off the back of your other projects. Moving on to sketch number 7, this is Operation Right Home 162. This design has quite a few pieces of pattern paper and they're all layered on top of each other. So I decided not to put white mats on every layer. I'm not sure if I would do this next time. I'm interested in your thoughts on what you think about this card. I think maybe because the chocolate color is like a shimmer cardstock that's really thick. It's like 110 pound. And so that does add a bit of bulk. And I did find that I was constantly adding extra layers to make sure that things stayed very, very flat. I mean, I liked the card in the end, but this one was quite fiddly to put together. One of the things that I've been working on recently is trying to build some relationships within my community where I could actually donate cards that could put a smile on people's faces. And there's a couple of ways that I do that. One is, local retirement homes. They absolutely love getting donations of cards that the staff can write on them for the residents for their birthdays, but then also the residents can actually use those cards to send to their loved ones quite easily if they have some there and available for them. The other thing as well is, community groups, so things like after school programs or school holiday programs. So what I've been working through is the best way that I can get involved with those. And part of it is creating some card kits. So I do have quite a few suppliers, in particular pattern papers. So if I can chop those down into something that's meaningful and then provide some card bases, then as part of those holiday programs, the kids can just glue them together and make some cards for, their grandparents or their friends, or, just take something home that they can be proud of. The other area that I'm looking at is if I make cards and encouragement cards, is then trying to partner up with someone who loves writing in cards and then getting those to a place that they might bring a smile to someone's face. That might be delivering 150 cards to a retirement village where, maybe a community group has sat down and written some really nice messages. The trick is really just to take the time to build some rapport with the event coordinators at these different types of organisations. And I've been focusing on that over the last 6 months, and it's working. It's going to take a little bit more time. And if I can find some organisations that are really benefiting from my cards, and then I can provide them with top-ups when they need it, then that's ultimately where I want to be. Okay, so this particular card, so Operation Right Home Sketch 120, I have cut the same pattern paper into the two components and then flipped it. So we've got the inverse of two of these designs with the patterned paper and then this sort of rusty red colour. This card is very, very simple, and I did decide not to put an oval like on the original card sketch. I don't have oval dies, and so for me, that would have been quite a pain to create. So I went a little bit rogue with this one. I did use the craft background that matches in really well with these papers, just attaching them to the card bases here. And then I've got, again, some of this dark chocolate shimmer cardstock to create the separator. And then I've just created a little sentiment stamp here called You're Awesome. And this is from a waffle flower stamp set, I think. I will put a link below to all of these different stamp sets. I don't normally use this many different stamp sets for one video, but again, I'm trying to not create birthday cards, so I'm really digging deep into my stash. These came up really well. I really like these ones. Moving on to card sketch number 9, which is Mojo Monday 5 to 8. So for this one, I used this really nice flower paper. This one stood out to me from the very beginning when I first went through the paper pad. And for this particular sketch, I felt like I could use a decent sized strip of the paper and it would really be, a focal. I am not into bows though, so I think for the strip across the top, you could absolutely use some ribbon and tie a bow or even use some twine or thread. But for me, I don't like fussing with it, and then I'm not really into the look of it either, to be honest. So for this card design, I did just decide that I would attach just a strip of paper across the top so that I do stay aligned with what the sketch was intending, but I add my own little spin to that as well. So I've just created white mats here, and I did measure those out in advance. And then I'm just adding this little chocolate shimmer strip down the right-hand side, which just adds a little bit of interest to this focal point on the card. These are the strips that I was talking about. On the brown, I just used some orange, and then on the orange paper, I ended up using some of the flower paper again. So it definitely matches in with the rest of the card design and everything ties together really nicely. Now for this sentiment, I am doing a thank you sentiment on one of them. I had that sitting on my desk ready to go. And then I have used a different sentiment for the second card. Again, just using the things that were on my desk that were readily available. The thank you stamp is from Follow the Rainbows from Simon Says Stamp. And I think the other one is a Simon Says Stamp one also, but it's from an older set. And again here, I'm just adding a hummingbird, but I'm adding one of the small hummingbirds. It's quite hard to see those on the video here, but in real life, it stands out a little bit more on the card. They are super, super cute, and they are die cuts from Paper Rose, who are located here in Australia. Now we're up to the final card sketch. This is Mojo Monday 535. This one has many, many layers and ended up being one of the bulkiest cards of the lot. I had to do several pieces of scrap paper just to keep everything balanced, and it ended up pretty heavy and thick, to be honest. It was fun to put together, and I really did love using such a funky pattern paper for the circle design. But now that we're up to sketch number 10, I can say that my absolute favourite was Mojo Monday 528. So the card that we just did, card number 9, I love that piece of pattern paper, and then the strip of cardstock next to it matted on a piece of white. I think I can absolutely use that sketch again, and maybe I'll do a feature video using that sketch, running through using an absolute load of my scrap pattern papers. Okay, so back to card number 10, or design number 10. I'm just putting these together using a bunch of my scraps to layer them up. It's a little bit fiddly, but it is quite satisfying when you can feel that the card itself is really balanced and flat with all the layering that you've put in. And I do think just this card reminds me of the fact that you can get such a different look with this pattern paper depending on which papers you use together. Like this has browns and oranges, and this looks completely different to the previous ones where we had teals and oranges and really bright colors. And then way back at card number 1, we had something that was black and white on gray. So I really, if you're looking to be able to create lots of different cards from one paper pad, then these are the types of paper pads that I think you should look out for, especially if you don't make as many cards as I do and you get bored of a pattern paper pad, then this is the type of paper that I think would be helpful to most card makers who are not doing the same level of volume. So these 4 turned out really, really cute. This is a My Favorite Thing stamp saying, "You're brilliant, keep doing that." It's definitely one of my favorites. In the end, I created 35 cards from 10 different sketches. They all turned out very, very, very differently, and I really, really enjoyed this paper pad. I have put a link to a playlist with more challenge videos and another video that I think you might enjoy. Have a great day.